Hi, I'm just checking this out. It's been a while since I've used it. We're getting ready to start a new course, and I thought I would take this opportunity, trying to give you some visual contact and help you to understand the course that you're about to start here. The title is The Medieval European Experience, and it has to do with European Middle Ages. I think what I'm going to do first is simply talk about your textbooks, and I think that will help you give you a sense of the overlay of the course. As you know, we're starting out with two books. One is Thomas Cahill's A History of the Middle Ages, and the other is Augustine's City of God. Cahill is something of a maverick in the historical society, and he's taken a lot of flack for this book. However, I find it a bit refreshing in that he tries to encapsulate the key ideas of the Middle Ages in the life stories of particular individuals. There's, and of course that's the basis of the problem. But I would like to suggest that as you read it, basically keep raising the question, is this, to your knowledge, a fair evaluation of the Middle Ages? And basically Cahill's thesis is that these particular characteristics having to do with science, femininity, and topics like that we think are very modern things, are actually have their roots in the Middle Ages, and that we cannot understand the modern world if we do not understand these roots in European society. So read it for fun. It's going to be one of the lighter books that you read in the course, and it's controversial. Look up some reviews on it, get some take, but I think you will at least you won't go to sleep reading Cahill's history. That gives us a broad background. Then alongside of that, in the first 3 weeks, we're going to be reading Augustine's City of God, which is a classic in political theory. It's a classic in the history of the late Roman Empire, because we have a massive compendium. Remember, he wrote all of this out with pen and quill. With quill and ink. This is a massive production that gives you a sense of the major players in the argument about paganism versus Christianity. When Augustine lived, the empire had been officially Christian for about 100 years. While he was writing, the empire was being invaded, maybe is a strong word, but by Germanic tribes. And when he died in 430, the Vandals were actually pounding on the gates of his city of Hippo in North Africa. So he lived in a world that was in upheaval for many kinds of reasons, and he's trying to make sense out of it. So I want you to read Augustine from the stand and see through his eyes the ferment, the upheaval in the intellectual and theological lives of Roman citizens at the time. I would also like you to watch in particular for hints that for all of his attempt to see the world through Christian eyes, basic Christian principles, he actually maintains a bit of the Greek dualism, Greek thought. And I want you to watch for that. I want you to watch for hints of it, because here is a giant of a man who took on himself I think at the call of God, a mammoth challenge to confront the fundamentals of paganism. And the arguments that he presents are at times very, very profound. But for all of his learning and all of his spiritual insight, he still does not quite escape the Greek worldview in which he was raised and in which he was educated. And the point that I'm raising here is that I want you to see Augustine as a great man, and yet at the same time, in one sense, very much a man of his times. And it helps us to understand ways that even today we are imprisoned in the worldview of which we are a part. And I think so often as I read, think about issues today, how much I am, part of the modern world. And I've inherited these, I've absorbed them, I've inherited them, I've absorbed them through education and reading and, watching the evening news. So that'll give you some sense of what we're looking for. We're asking for response to Cahill. I want you to pick something from his book that you find interesting, controversial, or plain wrong, and write a brief analysis of that. A response. This is not a summary. This is a response. I'm responding to something in the chapters that you read. And then summaries, as we've taught you to do in the first course, 150-word digests, abstracts of the chapters. That will give you an index to Augustine's thought that will come in handy for you later. Then after week 4, we finish Cahill. Actually, there's an error in your syllabus. Cahill only goes to chapter 9. There's not 11 chapters, so we're talking about chapter 9. Then, and with the last chapter of Cahill, we're going to start reading St. Thomas. These are what we've given you in the textbooks are summaries of some of his arguments dealing with ethics. And to introduce you to the way St. Thomas wrote, how he thought, and look at the ways, particularly that his conclusions are phrased and encapsulated differently from Augustine. There's 600-700 years between the two men. And Augustine was writing on the threshold of a new world. St. Thomas is writing at the pinnacle of the power of the medieval church, and he's part of that power structure, and he believes that this is the way that it is supposed to be. So there are some very, very interesting differences in writing from a position of not weakness, but a bit of defensiveness in Augustine, to a very strong sense that the world is ordered as it's supposed to be. So again, now in the Augustine material, you really are not going to be able to summarize in quite the same way that you did before, because many of these are arguments that deal with different issues. We'll talk about that when we get down to chapter 4. And then the other you're going to have several smaller books to read. You're going to have we're going to read Machiavelli's The Prince. We're going to read St. Thomas More's Utopia. We're going to read 3 excerpts, or not actually excerpts, but 3 works, short works from Luther. But tying all of these together is Diarmaid MacCulloch's The Reformation. And this is a magisterial book based upon a key idea. MacCulloch's argument is that it was an idea that shattered the medieval church. And it is not that the church was weak. He argues that the church was actually very, very strong. But a single idea penetrated the thinking of his day. And that idea was one can be saved by faith apart from the ministries of the church. That there's this idea that human beings can have a personal relationship with God that that is not dependent upon the structure of the church. He at one point in the book, I think it's in the first chapters of the book, he likens it to a beautiful stained glass window in which someone throws a rock, and it hits it hits in the center of this beautiful window, and for the first instant nothing happens, but then very gradually cracks begin to form throughout the window, further and further and further from the place where the rock impacted it, and eventually the whole window comes crashing down in bits and pieces, completely destroying the picture. And he argues that that's essentially what happened. The church endured a serious blow in Luther's Reformation, and then and he covers that in the first chapters of the book, and then the rest of the book is a detailed analysis of all of those cracks, all of that network of ideas that are damage that resulted from Luther's idea and the Reformation, and the fact that all of this comes tumbling down. So don't get lost in the last part of the book, because he's going to take you to places in Europe that you never heard of, I imagine, talking about how the Reformation worked itself out in localities, in cities, in principalities, all across Western, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe. You're going to watch this pattern. It gives you a good sense, of how the Reformation managed to exert such a powerful impact on Western Europe. You'll notice in your program that there are 3 projects. Actually, there's only 3 team projects. One on Edward Gibbon, one on Henry Perrin, one on Jacob Burckhardt, and one on Max Weber. These are the 4 most well-known schools of thought about the nature of the Reformation and its results. We're looking at this period, and I think we have enough people to do 2-person teams through each of these. So there's only these 2 team projects for the course, and in this case a research paper. And I will talk with you, and Dr. Lowe will talk with you about how to structure that paper in some way to contribute towards your thesis topic. So I wish you well. I will be devoting, I think, one afternoon a week. I think it's Tuesday afternoon a week this semester, to working specifically on responding to your writings. I'll check in every now and then, but I have set aside, I think, 4 or 5 hours on Tuesday afternoon to catch up and give guidance for the following week. Okay, if you have questions, to email me or call me. And this is one of my very most favorite periods of time. So I hope we can enjoy exploring the issue of worldview and what constitutes a biblical critique of the Middle Ages. It's not a perfect world. It's in many ways it's a world of sham. Appearances are very different from the realities. And yet, at the same time, it was an age of faith, and we need to explore that, understand what kind of faith, and how that particular kind of faith actually comes up short. Okay, blessings on you, and we will. You'll be hearing from me